So in Murray Rothbard's book, Man, Economy, and State, he introduced an idea that he called the platinum-lined transcontinental railroad. As just when I state this example, you can easily understand how prices are able to give us really effective indicators of relative scarcity, and why we shouldn't waste money on one thing or another. We can dismiss prices for one reason or another. Maybe we have ideological, let's say, a disliking towards prices. Some people do, but we can see just how important they are. That help us behave in a more rational way. We're able to have rational economic calculation thanks to prices. And that's the example that Murray Rothbard gave. Again, the platinum line transcontinental subway was why is it that we can know that we shouldn't use platinum for a subway going across a continent? It very much could well be that platinum is a superior metal than steel. I'm no metallurgist, but if I'm not mistaken, it is one. But we can know at once. We can know ahead of time that we just shouldn't bother with this endeavor. And how are we able to know this? It's through financial considerations, right? We see that, frankly, the price of per ton of platinum is ridiculously higher than per ton of any grade of steel, probably.
So the price acts as a signal to let us know more than we already know.
That's
and
right.
It's a shortcut for planning.
Of relative scarcity.
Yeah.
Of platinum relative to steel.
Got it.
Right. And we're able to know this not just by the price themselves, but the price has to come about. You need the private ownership of the means to production. You need market for those means, and then you need prices for those means. And it's only through those prices that you get this wonderful indicator of relative scarcity. So, sorry, that was kind of a little bit of a detour, but when we communicated by text message, we covered one thing where I was discussing competition, and I discussed the miracle of aggregation.
Yeah.
This is from James Surowieki's book, The Wisdom of Crowds. I think that's what he calls it. If I'm not mistaken, most people tend to call this phenomenon the miracle of aggregation. It kind of works similar to kind of a coin flip. You know how we know in statistics, if we drop a coin a bunch of times, you're going to get on average about 50%. Especially if you do it lots of times, you're going to get pretty close to 50% heads, 50% tails, right? Kind of like in the way that works under the right conditions. There's actually a great deal of wisdom in crowds and in competing ideas, right? So Surowieki's book gives some different examples of this. One of them is the first one he gives in the book. I think it is in the 1800s there was a competition that they had. I think at a fair, poultry fair or something, where they had the crowd guess the weight of an ox after it was dressed in something, right? But just an ox sitting there, and they had, I think it was around 800 participants, just average Joes and Marys, right? Guessing on the weight of the ox. None of them were particularly expert on this, as even if there were some experts, not many of them. At the end of this, it was just there was a winner, and congratulations, this was the person that guessed closer to the actual weight of the ox. But there was, I forgot the name of the man, but there was a man, an intellectual of some sort. He said, wait, can I get all those votes, the papers that you have? And he brought them, they gave it to him, and he brought them to wherever he was working, and he did the numbers, and he noticed that the aggregate of them, the average, the mean average of them was less than 1% off. In fact, I think it was off by like a pound after like 1,000 something.
That's wild.
It was off like the aggregate of all of them was better on target than any individual guesser.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And as it so happens, this is a phenomenon that you can repeat probably in your classes, especially if you had a big class, because it would be more representative, right? So different example. The number of jelly beans in a jar. Do you happen to remember the other one?
I don't remember the specific examples, but I know that the phenomenon shows up in those game shows, right?
Oh,
Whenever
yes.
Crowds
That's
can get
one of my
close to the
favorite
guesses.
ones. In fact, in Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, the crowd guessed the correct answer apparently 91% of the time.
That's crazy.
Yeah. At least up until the year that the book was written, right?
Yeah.
Right. Maybe changed now, but 91% of the time that says something. So if you're ever in a game show, do you want to phone a friend or do you want the crowd?
You want to
Get
pull the crowd. Yeah, pull
Get
the crowd every time.
Right? Yeah. So crowds tend to have a certain wisdom. So now remember I said it works kind of like the coin flip. You can know with a good bit of probability that this will work when 4 criteria are met. And the 4 criteria he gives is diversity of opinion, independence, decentralization, and aggregation. I remember that with DIDA, DIDA. I don't know.
Okay.
Right. So diversity of opinion, well, we know what that means. I don't think I have to clarify on that, right? Some people think the weight of the ox is really, really high, and some think it's really, really low. And errors in one direction tend to be canceled out by errors in the other direction, just as long as they're reasonable and nobody says Googleplex. Right? and then it's off. Right?
No rebels allowed.
And then negative Googleplex. And then they go, yes, you just hope that someone else did negative Googleplex. And then it's canceled out by the other one. Yeah. Let's see, DIDA, independence is each person's guessing on their own, right? They're not taking orders from someone else. Decentralization, it sounds kind of like independence, but he says this is more of acting on local knowledge, right? Kind of Hayek's dispersed knowledge, right? And the aggregation is you have to have some way of aggregating them, at least for these experiments, right? And I admit that I don't know anybody that has sort of looked at miracle of aggregation. Oh, actually, right in the book he did. There were, I don't remember what it's called, but some kind of I think it's only legal in like Ireland, but not in the U.S., where you can make actual bets and put your money on them. For who's going to win a particular election and when America might, the U.S. government might pull out of Afghanistan because these kinds of things, and apparently they have with very high accuracy. So much so that someone was trying to bring it to the U.S. intelligence agency and let them, but it was too politically.
Yeah.
So no, not legal in the U.S.
Yeah.